You're
All of
someone
us
that
So
people
many
can't be
stigmas
around,
around mental
sometimes.
health.
because
One
And that may
is
not.
there's so many stigmas around mental health. One is that only white people go to therapy, that only white people care about their mental health, and that is, furthest thing from the truth. The other stigma that's really prevalent is this idea that if you go to therapy or that you are thinking about mental health, emotional wellness, that there's something wrong with you, that you're crazy.
you're someone that people can't be around. I just think it's very important to have an open conversation and open dialogue with people that you trust and care about, because that actually does help with your mental health.
Part of me sharing my story has been so that I can selfishly unburden myself. It has helped me love myself. Even though it hurts me to share my story over and over again, I want everyone to know what community I came from.
One of the stigmas I learned growing up was that as a man, if you need help, you're weak.
Uno tiene que entender la dificultad que para el hombre latino es hablar y aceptar el problema. Como hombre, como jefe de hogar, le es difícil buscar ayuda por su salud mental y más aún cuando tiene problemas de adicciones.
And something I've learned becoming a man and a father now, the strongest people are the ones who know they can't do it alone sometimes. The strongest people are the ones who ask for help.
More than courage, I think it takes balls to become the woman that I've become.
Welcome, y'all. Welcome to the salon. This is definitely, a space where you do more than get your hair done. You come sometimes for the bochinche, sometimes you come to get your hair done, but then also a place to, let your hair down. In your experience, has, the salon or the barbershop been a place for you to come and vent?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like the salon was always the place for women where they talk about their femininity and the things that they've experienced. And I feel like a lot of my womanhood I learned in el salon.
I can relate to it in a barbershop in terms of just a place where tenderness and also people can share what they're feeling inside of themselves. I don't know of a lot of spaces in community where that's possible.
I think it's so interesting how everyone makes their way into therapy. For me, I was in my early 20s. I was in a relationship that I probably should have not been in, only because it was a very mature relationship for my age. We decided to give couples therapy a go. Maybe 2-3 sessions in, the couples therapist is like, Josie, I'd like to see you individually next week. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, because not that I was a problem, but there was so much of my childhood that was being, brought up in my relationship. What was kind of the catalyst for the two of you?
Throughout my family, we suffered a lot of loss. Seeing my family not being able to cope with it, I guess I was developing anxiety and depression without realizing it. Seeing the most strongest person in the world become the most weakest person in the world in front of you. I think there was a moment in my brain that was like, don't get attached, got it, click. And that's how I lived my whole 20s. I needed help because I just felt so lost. I just couldn't connect with people. I felt like an alien. There would be opportunities for the things that I wanted to do, but I wouldn't follow through with it because I didn't have self-worth. I wouldn't get up from bed for months or weeks. I'll just do the bare minimum. And I thought I was okay.
A number of years ago, it was just so many things in my life colliding at the same time. And right at the end of it, a dear friend of mine died by suicide. And that, I think, was the tipping point for me. I'd be in a room and I'd feel completely separate from everything that was happening. And, just the way that I was brought up, and I think that has to do with culture and a lot of things in family. I was told, you handle anything. It's your responsibility to take care of yourself and get through it. I went and found a therapist and met with him every week. And it was incredible to see what 45 minutes a week could do with somebody who just knew which questions to ask.
Something that you said that I think is really important to know is that that's the beauty of our brains and our bodies, right? It's about survival. I'm going to learn how to not experience this pain. So I'm gonna learn to not become attached. When our bodies devise these coping mechanisms, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, especially when you're younger. It's just that they become maladaptive when you become an adult, because at that point you're an adult. That's where therapy becomes really important, because you unlearn and you relearn and redefine, but you were doing exactly what you were supposed to do. We have such immense amount of privilege compared to, generations before us, because they, might have been going through anxiety and depression, for example, but maybe they didn't have the language for it. So what was it like for the two of you to have that language?
It definitely made me feel like I wasn't alone. When I was a teenager, that's when I got help, right? Like my whole family got involved and all that stuff. The therapist was like, oh, you suffer from depression. And I was like, okay, problem solved. I got depression. But I didn't realize that throughout my 20s, it was affecting me.
I think over the last 5 years, in many ways, there's been more language that's put on wide public platforms related to mental health than I've seen in my life before that. To hear something captured in a word or in a term that I thought only I experienced, and to hear that other people experience that, is one of the most validating, powerful things I think I've ever experienced.
What's it like then to, talk to your family and say, tengo depresión, or I'm suffering from this, because again, there's like the difference in generations and stigma and all of the things.
It was an action that disturbed everyone, and they were like, we need to help her. When you're a child and things happen to you, you're not affecting the child, you're affecting the adult that they're going to become. When my family became involved, they're like, why didn't you tell me? I just didn't feel like you'd understand. My dad still didn't understand, but he was like, no matter what, like, I'm here for you. Like, I am your dad. Just everyone in my family was just so supportive.
My mother was always very much in support of going to do therapy. My papi was very not with it when I was younger, but I think he's a great example of somebody who has grown a lot over the course of his life, and I've watched him be a big champion of therapy now. Emotionally, the way that he's opened up, and he's so vulnerable now, which is something that if you asked me, when I was 30 years ago, I don't think that version of him would have been possible. There were so many things that were attached, so many stigmas where, if you went to therapy, that was something you didn't tell people. Sometimes it takes one courageous person to step out for whatever reason, and then you watch everyone else say, okay, fine, I guess, well, maybe therapy's all right.
Right.
There's so many different things that folks can do if they cannot afford therapy or cannot get to, or therapy isn't accessible to them, right? I think that taking care of your emotional, your physical health, right, is a way to take care of your emotional health as well. If you're not sleeping, no amount of therapy is going to support your mental health if your body, right, your vessel is not properly taken care of. There's so many books now, and everything starts with awareness.
From somebody from the Bronx, we didn't have access to it. My family didn't believe in it. They thought that, like, if you go to therapy, that means that immediately you're going to a psych ward and they're gonna keep you there forever. Like, there's all like these myths around it, and we're not getting the help that we need. One of the things that I've learned is movement, like cleaning my house, cook something good, and like have the moment to yourself. That's like, tells my brain every day, I care about you, I love you. And I think that that's been helping me now.
I've never felt the kind of emotional, mental, spiritual, financial stress that I felt during the pandemic. It was just my partner and I working from home and parenting our 2 small children for a year, basically. I spend my life as a writer and a performer in a lot of different venues, and to try to adapt to a world where I couldn't be on stage, or it wasn't as easy to film something at that time. And so I had a routine that I did every day. Getting enough sleep, calling one person that I deeply love and trust, and seeing their face and talking to them, going for that 30-minute walk, naming my 5 gratitudes, and then meditating before bed. It made me feel resilient. Even on the hardest days where I was most exhausted, it kind of anchored me and it stabilized me in ways where I felt like I can definitely get through this day, and I can definitely get to tomorrow. And I think for those of us who know about what it means to be wrestling with being depressed or being anxious or feeling overwhelmed, that can be a miracle.
Yeah.
To feel those things at the end of a day.
Hurt people hurt people. I constantly see it everywhere, where you just see a whole bunch of people that are hurt, that want to be heard. Everyone's just pointing the finger and this, that, and the third, and we're constantly hurting each other. No one's stepping back and saying, what am I doing wrong? And how do I heal the inner child in me that was never able to heal? Seek help in the best way that you can. Reach out to your community. Reach out to people that you feel like you can trust. Speak to people. It's about having the conversation. It's about being around people that are trying to heal as much as you. And I think about, if we can heal ourselves, we can heal a community.
And to let people know that you've been through times where you can't do it by yourself, or you're going through a difficult moment, if you feel safe enough and okay to do that. And I've seen the power of talking about emotions and being very vulnerable in front of rooms of men from all different kinds of backgrounds. When they see one man showing something and making it possible and saying, I can laugh, I can talk about vulnerability, I can talk about being insecure or lost or openly weep in front of you, you watch all the dominoes start to fall and you watch more people show emotion in that room. In 1 hour, you're watching a community shift. And so I dream of living in a world where, when I was growing up, I remember wishing there was one man in the world who could be vulnerable and emotional and not apologize. When I was growing up, if I ever saw my papi cry, I would have thought the world was ending, because I never saw him cry growing up, never once. That's something I think about so much with my kids. I want them to know, like, I can cry because I'm sad. I can cry because I'm happy. I can cry because I'm feeling different things. And I can laugh and I can feel all these different things. So I think a lot about trying to model that for my kids so that they feel permission as they grow into themselves to feel all those things. And so I hope that we live in a world where we can all be models to each other's possibilities. And again, like, help each other heal in community.
This is how we heal our lineages. There's like a generational thing in my family around, with women, very big in the Latinx community, where it's just like, tú no puedes llorar, crying is like, what? But that's how she survived. My mom and I have been to therapy together because I've done my own healing work. I interact with her differently. I think that gives her permission to show up differently. By me healing myself, she has permission to heal herself, right? It is very beautiful to witness how the work that we do spills into other places.
You're not always gonna know what's going on with you. Understand that no matter how different they feel, like when I was feeling alienated, there is someone out there that feels just like me, and that my mind is playing tricks on me and telling me that no one is going to understand. I want you to know to not listen to that voice and to be around your community. I practice Buddhism, and that's one of the things that they always say, like, just be around people, like, people that are trying to help you, and have self-empathy. Because you messed up today doesn't mean that you're a failure.
I know that when I'm going through a really difficult time mentally and emotionally, my instinct, so I'll go inward and I'll pull away from family and I want to stop calling and talking to everybody. And that's the opposite of what I need to do. With more practice, I'm trying to learn, even when it's very, very hard, to try to find ways to even reach out to one person when I'm feeling myself moving in that direction. When people most need to reach out, everything in them is pulling them away from doing that.
I envision a world where we're talking about emotional health as much as we talk about the latest video or, getting our nails done.
Self-awareness. Know that you're worth every good thing in the world. You deserve it. You treat people as a reflection of how you see yourself or how you feel about yourself.
Something I've noticed in my daughter's education, the day would start with social emotional learning, which, my gosh, I think about how much I needed that growing up. In training kindergartners how to acknowledge their emotions, name them, talk about where they're arriving at that school day. My biggest dreams are that being a part of the infrastructure of every day, of every facet of our lives. Being able to talk that freely and that candidly about what's happening inside of us, and us building emotional literacy and practice across our lives.
Learning about your emotions and where you are and how you feel it's going to give less power to things that are external from you. We all need to have emotional awareness. I think that that is the next step in society for sure.
Mental health is available to everyone, even though therapy isn't always available to everyone, but there's so many different ways that we can take care of emotional health. Being able to cope with different stressors in your life, being able to have awareness and know about emotions, your feelings, and what do you do with those feelings?
It feels good when you talk about these things because then people know that we're not alone. And once we figure out that we're not alone, then we're in the business of healing one another. And I think that's very important.
To feel mentally and emotionally well, I feel solid and prepared for whatever might come up.